program complete. Enter when ready.
People make some really stupid choices in this episode that like we'll get to. Like these are supposed to be like starship captains who have seen like tons of stuff.
Yeah.
And they know what they're out there to do, and then immediately they're like, "Well, Kirk, why are you doing this, Kirk? Kirk!" Like, no, it's not. It's not. It's probably not Kirk.
Probably not Kirk.
It's probably not Kirk that's doing these horrible things, right? Okay. No, it's Kirk. Why are you doing this, Kirk? 400 dead, Kirk.
600. 900.
1,000, Kirk. When will it end?
Risk is our business.
Out there. That'll work.
What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Rock and roll! 6.
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone.
Join our Federation of Planets. And reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Welcome back to another Trek review, where each week we talk about Star Trek. And this week we're talking about the original series episode, The Ultimate Computer. It originally aired March 8th, 1968. It was a teleplay by D.C. Fontana and a story by Lawrence N. Wolfe. And it was directed by John Meredith Lucas. The synopsis for The Ultimate Computer is the Enterprise is used to test the new M5 computer. So that is the synopsis and the details of the episode. But before we continue, let's ask Caleb what he thinks of the episode.
So, enjoyed it a lot more than last week's episode for sure.
Yeah.
It had some stuff in it that I enjoyed, and there's some stuff in it that I don't enjoy, but because of like the time period that we're in, a lot of this stuff is like very like you can see exactly where it's going,
Yeah.
But I can definitely tell like back then it would be this new like, oh man,
Yeah, like
technology is bad.
Yeah.
But like nowadays it's like you knew immediately, even without seeing it or knowing anything about the M5 computer, like you just knew like, okay, this is going to be obviously bad, and they're going to be talking about how, technology too much too soon is, thinking AI is bad. Which is interesting. But what's funny is like we still talk about that today.
We do. It's
Now,
still
AI is taking everybody's jobs.
It still is like relevant. Like some of the stuff that they touch on is still relevant to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I enjoyed it overall.
Good.
I wasn't like waiting for it to be over, like Private Little Whoa.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad today we're not doing Private Little War Part 2, that's all.
Yeah. So before we move on to the teaser, we can do our subscriber comment section. So our two latest subscribers that I can see from YouTube are Ed Donch, I'm going to say, I guess, and Tom Sims.
Nice.
We appreciate you guys subscribing. And because we filmed on a off day last week, we got a couple comments.
Oh, cool.
We weren't able to get for our when we filmed the Private Little War. I didn't have these comments loaded yet because they hadn't commented. Captain Olimar. He says the aliens looked good in this one. Makes sense knowing now the budget was mostly put towards it. Great job, guys.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he likes it.
I did enjoy the aliens in that episode.
He did.
And that's kind of where like everything that we have now kind of came from, you know?
Yeah,
So that's cool.
it is. And then we had this really strange account comment. Kali Mambu says Kali Mambu Mbenga commented Kali Mambu.
Wonder
Very
what that is.
interesting.
It's weird. It's funny that somebody made their own screen name and everything for that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think he commented on your one of your shorts too, I think.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Weird.
But here's the interesting thing. So yesterday, Captain Olimar commented on our Private Little War podcast.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he also said, I personally didn't mind the episode, pretty much felt like standard Trek. At least the villain wasn't a computer behind a wall. Keep it up, guys. So
yeah.
I have to, it's as much as we didn't like a Private Little War, I have to agree to him. It's not really outside of what Star
No.
Trek ends up being.
No, it still feels pretty Trekky, you know, in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. It just that in most episodes of the original series, they're goofy and they're kind of dated and yeah, it's fine and you enjoy them. I just
Right.
that episode for me specifically had too many like weird plot hole things that just kind of I
Yeah.
couldn't let slide is all. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, I liked a lot of stuff in that episode. I like Kirk and Bones being together mostly and talking and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But that's cool.
yeah.
I'm glad he enjoys it.
Yeah, same. And the reality is, and I'm not actually being salty, but like it's clear that he watched like the whole video because
Yeah.
we weren't just like this is the worst thing imaginable and we hate
Right.
everything about it. Like we did
Yeah.
discuss things about what we did like about the episode. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Sometimes we get into stuff and it can sound pretty bad right off the bat and you
True.
could leave with that opinion, but we kind of bring it around mostly.
Yeah. It was only at the end when we were like closing out the podcast that we were being silly and being like, "This thing's garbage," and let's stop the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I said, I really enjoyed the the Mumbambus.
Yeah.
I saw that white gorilla costume was featured in another 60s like show or something.
Mm-hmm. The costume was created and performed by Janos Prohaska. It was the same guy who did the Horda. He was the same
Yeah,
guy.
cool.
It is believed that Prohaska also used the costume for the fatal cargo episode of the voyage to the bottom of the sea without its head horn or back spikes. And in season 1, episode 22, Lucy's Safari of Here's Lucy.
That's it.
Yeah, he showed up in a show, one of like Lucille's Ball's like older shows later. Like Here's Lucy came out, I think, like in the late 60s.
Interesting. Yeah, same costume.
It is really interesting. Here's the teaser. The USS Enterprise is summoned to a space station by Commodore Enright without explanation. Commodore Bob Wesley, commanding the USS Lexington, explains in the Enterprise transporter room that the Enterprise will be a test vessel for a revolutionary tactical computer called the M5 Multitronic Unit, designed by the brilliant Dr. Richard Daystrom. The M5 will handle all ship functions, including responding to a simulated attack led by Wesley during the test with a crew of only 20, much to Captain Kirk's chagrin. So you get another space station shot, which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I like seeing the space station.
You also get a picture of I don't know if I can't remember if in the original airing, if the Lexington is docked at the spaceport like it is in the remastered, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I forgot that this happens, but here's the guy that we liked. I think you specifically liked Commodore Bob Wesley.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
is like the security chief in The Devil in the Dark that you liked.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the same actor.
I thought he looked familiar, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. So when that guy's down on the ground, they're talking about how to like search the mine for the Horda and all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
people were like, "Hey, we like that guy," and you're like, "Hey, does that guy stay?" Because I like him as a security guy. And I was like, "I don't think he ever comes back." I was right; he doesn't come back, but he comes back as a different character.
That's really funny. That
Yeah,
was like such a non-role
yeah,
that they're like, hey, if you came back and were like a Commodore, like it'd be fine. Like nobody would know.
true. And then we get the word. We get to hear the word that perhaps Caleb was wondering about.
Mm.
Dr. Richard Daystrom.
Yeah. I kind of remembered that it was based on the guy that invented it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've never seen him.
So the cool thing is for me is a lot of things in Star Trek, you know, still end up being called Daystrom whatever. So like Daystrom Station, Daystrom Institute. It's just like a thing that they label because they're like honoring the man.
Yeah.
So I don't think they come out and say that Richard Daystrom invented the holodecks. I don't think that they say that.
Mm.
But I thought it would be a funny thing to literally call it the Daystrom holodeck, which was like a
Yeah.
type of thing, like an experimental holodeck, essentially, right? Like that was kind of my thought behind it.
Yeah. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember his name being associated with like the computers and that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
didn't know like exactly what he had done other than, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the guy that did the first warp engine that was in Enterprise.
Oh, the older guys
The
that from Cochrane?
scientist. Yeah, Cochrane.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I like seeing like the guys kind of behind the
Yeah, like
scenes.
the inventors, yeah.
Yeah. They're always crazy apparently in Star Trek. They're always
Yeah.
absolutely bonkers.
It's definitely a thing that they very, very much continue
Yeah.
to explore. Like pretty much any genius or like revolutionary inventor or anything like that is always like on the hinge of insanity. But I guess they also say that that's just true of life, that most geniuses are like riding the edge of insanity and like normality.
Yeah, it seems like in Star Trek so far, like they invent something great and then kind of get forgotten about and then they go nuts. Or they're obsessed with like bettering something and then they
Yeah,
go too far.
of course.
So they create the human robots.
Human robots. Yeah, so a good intro to the episode to the episode.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that it was like they were they were playing it up like it was so like secretive.
Hmm.
Kirk was like, "Well, what's the reason for this?" Like, "Oh, it's the reason's beaming aboard your ship right now." It's like, how are you beaming aboard the ship without like the ship's permission? But and then he gets there and he's like, "Oh yeah, we want to do this thing," and everybody looks so like mortified the entire time. You know?
I think maybe what we're supposed to take away from the writing of it is they kind of like didn't tell Kirk what was happening because he may not have allowed it to happen.
Yeah,
He might have fought it, type of thing.
yeah. Kirk was having a rough time, wasn't
Yeah, it's also a type of thing where it's at the end of the day, it's a TV show, so they have to do this thing where it introduces the episode and hook you, like, well, now I'm gonna stay and watch more of it once we go to titles, the intro and then commercial.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
true.
like, so how do we get them to do that? Well, we gotta give them as much information as possible, but we gotta keep you guessing and wondering for as long as we can in the intro. So you gotta like pad it with all this like information, like all this workaround, or the guy is talking and you're like, uh-huh, but why are you on the ship? And he's like, well, wouldn't you like to know why I'm on the ship? It's like, yes, I would love to know why you're on the ship. He's like, well, I am on the ship, your ship, Kirk, the
Yeah.
USS Enterprise. And you're like, okay, okay.
And I'm standing here talking to you now
All
about
right.
why I'm on the ship.
Yeah, so
That's a recurring thing, you know.
very much so.
The whole like, hey, emergency broadcast, they get there, the space station's like, oh, we have this stuff that you need to
Yeah,
guard, and the Federation wants you to do it, and
yeah,
because it could have just easily have been like, hey, so we want to test out the new M5 computer, and you're like the closest starship in like range of the space station.
right.
I mean, it's obviously like a plot thing, right? That it had
It's
to be the
partially a plot.
Enterprise
Yeah,
because like we wouldn't have seen it, but like they had like four other starships there. They had
yeah.
Lexington and
I think the only thing to maybe, I don't want to say argument, but I think maybe the only thing that would be is like the Enterprise is considered like the flagship.
mm,
So rather than just put it on any of the ships that perhaps have the same conditions, it's like you put it on the
yeah.
one that like represents Starfleet.
Yeah, so you might as well try out some like really experimental tech on it that could go horribly wrong. Yeah, you might as well
Yeah,
use it on the.
that's
I
why you
mean,
put
you
it on
wouldn't
the
want to like
best of the best.
you wouldn't want to like run it through like a simulation in the lab for a while and just see how it responds to stuff. Just plug it in,
Well, he did,
baby.
yeah. He did nothing but simulations, and then he was like, now it's time for the road.
Yeah. And then as soon as it got out on the road, it was like, oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna be.
I'm gonna kill
I
everyone.
want to be free. My purpose is to survive at all costs.
Captain's log, stardate 4792.4. The M5 computer has been installed on board ship, and we have left the space station for test maneuvers. Dr. Richard Daystrom, who designed the duotronic computers used on the Enterprise, arrives on board to install his new M5 multitronic unit, which is capable of running a starship with only minimal personnel. Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy meet him in engineering, where he is finishing up the installation. Daystrom explains the first 4 units weren't entirely successful, but this one has the capability to control the ship. Responding to Kirk's skepticism, he challenges Kirk on enjoying the prestige of the captaincy. Spock stays with Daystrom, while Kirk and McCoy leave. Kirk wrestles with his own unease about the advance in technology and his own possible obsolescence, maybe?
Yeah, sounds right. Affirmative.
So I'll talk about it now because we physically see Richard Daystrom. So going forward, and I'm sure this is probably what you were thinking too, is you can see where, okay, we look at it through the eyes of you,
Mhm.
and it is very reminiscent of the episode where the inventor of the transporter comes aboard the Enterprise looking for his son.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's who he was. Yeah. The transporter guy.
Right. Now reverse it, it's obvious that Enterprise was copying this.
Right. That's really funny.
But yeah, so it's the only thing that's kind of weird, and it's
They
fine.
did it
Like,
better.
yeah, it's kind of weird, and I don't think it's intended to be this way, but like just with having Enterprise and in this episode, it's a little too on the nose to have it be a black guy and they're both like crazy.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that for
It's a
sure.
little, it's a little, I don't know, it's interesting. I think that in this episode they treated this guy nice. I don't think they did any weird
Yeah.
like backhanded racism or anything.
No.
I think they
No,
treated him like a normal
and
guy.
I like this version because of the time period
Yeah, yeah,
for sure. But like you're saying, like going forward in Enterprise, like they didn't really need to do that.
no. And it's obvious that the reason why they did it was to be like a nod to Dr. Daystrom, like another older black guy who
Yeah.
comes on and he's the inventor of something, like, and he's well respected and all this stuff. Like, it's obvious that that was the nod
Yeah.
because season 4, which is the episode which that episode is in, is very much trying to make Enterprise tie into like later Star Trek.
hmm
So
Yeah, and you know what? I think in Enterprise, I think his motivations were better, obviously, because he's looking for his son.
son, yeah.
This guy is just like wanting not to be irrelevant anymore
Yeah, right. Yeah.
and doing like really horrible stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I like
No, I
both.
agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
I was like they set him up to be like weird, kind of like right off the bat.
A little bit, yeah.
Because when he's talking to them, McCoy's like, "Yeah, well, the only thing I question is this," and he's like, "Who's this? Who's this idiot?" And they're like, "Oh, that's McCoy. He's the chief medical officer." And he's like, "Well, this is a secured area." He's like, "Dude, it's not your ship. Like, you're not on your ship, dude. Like, you don't get to tell
So
people
funny.
where to be on the Enterprise."
I
And Kirk's
totally
like,
thought
"He has security clearance for every room aboard the ship. It's fine."
I gotta tell you this. So that's hilarious that you say that
Yeah.
because I thought when that scene happens, you were gonna be on the total opposite side of that. Because usually you're always like mad at Bones being on the bridge or being in places
Oh,
he
am
doesn't need
I?
to be. Yeah, you're always like, why did McCoy come to the bridge? You're like, why is he doing this thing? Like he's the
Well,
doctor, right? No, that's what you
yeah,
say.
sometimes. Yeah, no, sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Like if there's
It's
something
just
going on,
weird.
he's always doing something else, and it's like, why is he?
I totally thought you were going to be like, yeah, why is he in the engineering room? Who cares about a doctor being down in the engineer? I thought that's where you were totally going to be with
Yeah,
him. But I totally
that's
get
really
what you
funny.
mean. I totally get what
No,
you mean.
because it's one of those things where it's like this guy has no right to tell McCoy
Yeah,
where to
yeah,
be,
yeah.
and
Totally.
obviously you have like the chief medical officer, the chief science officer, and the captain like talking to the guy that's installing the computer.
Right.
So like to me that makes sense to have those three there.
Right. Right.
But yeah, usually McCoy's got like 5 people dying in the med bay, and he's up on the
Yeah.
bridge talking to the captain about something. It's like, dude, use the intercom. That's really funny that you thought I was going to be. What's he even doing in there? No, I was totally on board.
Yeah.
I really like McCoy in this episode.
Wow, that's really funny. I totally thought you were going to be like, God, he's so annoying. That's really, really funny. I'm
That's really
glad though.
funny.
I'm really glad that like you had the
Yeah, he does
opposite.
a lot in this episode. He kind of helps Kirk realize, like, you know, like you're not obsolete, buddy. You're good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this the scene that we just talked about, them in the hallway of Kirk talking to him
Yeah,
after meeting Daystrom for the first time.
yeah.
I really like that scene
I like that scene a lot too.
they're walking down the hallway and he's like, he's really mad, and then he's like, well, should I be mad? He's like, does this mean like am I overreacting to this?
Yeah,
Like only a
I love.
fool get in the way of progress, he says, right? It's like, yeah, I don't
I
know.
love that line. I love that line too, where he's like, "You have all my medical charts. Like, look at my medical charts. Tell me if I'm crazy." And he's like, "Well, if obviously if you're asking that, then that already tells you like your answer. Like maybe you should talk to Kirk about this."
Yeah.
He's a pretty stand-up guy.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he comes in, and gives him the shot, he prescribes the shots of booze. Like that, I love that. That was like a great
Oh
scene.
yeah. Very reminiscent of the cage.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Where he comes in with the little
Martini.
glasses.
Yeah, the martini camp.
You know what's I find funny is like
Mhm.
I just for our RPG, I just kind of drew like house drinking.
Yeah, yeah.
And I literally just found like a cool like whiskey glass that like I would like, and it's almost identical to these like original series like little shot
For the picture, you
glasses.
mean? You found like
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's like almost exactly what I drew, the same like shape and everything.
Yeah.
No, that was pretty funny.
It is pretty funny.
But yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting. And I love too in that scene, talking about the scene a lot, but in that scene too, he's like, yeah, well, I need to tie into the main power, but I have not done it yet. And they're like,
Oh,
why haven't you done it yet? And they're like, well, because
yeah.
Scotty, he insisted on waiting for you to give the order. So then
He
Kirk's
doesn't
like,
want it.
all right, Scotty, go ahead. And he's like, aye, Captain. But he's not gonna do it if Daystrom tells him to do it. He ain't gonna do
Absolutely
it.
not.
No. Mm-mm. No, you
Because you're
get Kirk
messing
down
with
here
his
right
ship.
now.
You're messing with his ship, and he's
Yeah.
only going to do it under orders, right? If the
Yeah.
captain orders him to mess with the ship, then he'll do it. But until the captain orders him, he ain't doing nothing.
No. Is this the first time that
Oh,
we've seen Scotty
oh.
at the station on the bridge?
No.
No.
It might be the first time he's sat at the station, but
I've seen him on the bridge.
he's
Yeah.
definitely stood over there before. But yeah, but a great point. And it maybe we'll read this part, and then I think maybe we'll read this part, and then we'll talk about the thing. So the Enterprise, under M5 control, approaches the planet Alpha Carinae 2, achieves standard orbit, and makes its recommendations for the landing party. As the first example of the difference between the M5's decisions and those of a human, Kirk's recommendation is at odds with the M5's call, which includes the same astrobiologist, Phillips, a different geologist, Chief Rawlins instead of Ensign Carstairs, and doesn't include Kirk or McCoy in the landing party, calling them non-essential personnel. While this is going on, Montgomery Scott is observing that power on decks 4 and 5 has been cut, along with environmental controls for each deck. He traces the source of the power shutdowns to be the M5 itself.
Oh my God. I freaking knew it. Yeah, so in this part of the episode, you're immediately like, oh, this M5 is no good. But also, like, in my head too, I was like, well, why wouldn't the computer shut down all the living quarters that nobody's in to save power?
It doesn't. They write it in such a good way where you're like, uh-oh, the computer's bad. But then you're like, yeah, but I guess the computer's just being efficient.
Yeah.
So,
but it wasn't.
They did. Yeah, so they write it. Yeah, wow, yeah. But they write it in such a way where you're like, you're doing the same thing that like Kirk and everybody else is doing, which is like, uh-oh, like, this thing's taking over control. It has like so much authority and we're going to lose control and all this stuff. And then you're like, well, I guess it is more efficient and it is taking a lot of things out of the equation and it's making directions, like it's making maneuvers and recommendations like way faster than a normal human is. So,
yeah, I know, because then it comes back from commercial and it's like, well, yeah, it's just doing what it's supposed to do. Obviously, you're not going to power the entire ship if nobody's on the entire ship.
Right.
Like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's exactly this two scenes, but I definitely know that this is the episode that Caleb finally gets to see the OG7.
Yeah.
All of them are in the episode.
Yeah. Sulu's finally back.
Yep. Chekhov.
Scotty's on the bridge.
Yep. They're all there.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was happy to see that.
I did like, though, that when the computer tells Kirk why it picked the other geologist, it was like, well, I picked it because this guy's been to this planet when he was doing, like, I think, like, surveying for, like, mining ships or something.
Yeah. I really enjoy when it adds insult to injury when he's like, well, obviously it's just preference. And they're like, well, let's ask it. It's like, hey, why didn't you pick McCoy and Kirk? And they're like, non-essential staff.
But you know what's funny? As much as that like stings for the fans who love Kirk and McCoy and all that
Yeah,
stuff, it's
the
like
captain shouldn't be going down on
yeah, it's like the
missions.
captain shouldn't really be going down, and you don't really need the chief medical officer to go and make like a survey of a planet. Like you don't need
Yeah,
it when you're sending down an astrobiologist and a geologist. It's like it's okay.
yeah. That scene is funny, like I said, but yeah, I totally I agreed with the computer on that one. It's like the
Right,
captain shouldn't get hurt because he's the captain.
right,
So why risk sending him down there?
right.
And the chief medical staff should be in the med bay, on staff waiting for somebody to show up hurt,
Yeah, right.
you know.
Yeah,
He shouldn't be down on the plane. If he gets hurt,
right,
it's like it's
right,
this whole
right.
thing.
Like who's gonna take care of him?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was just funny
Yeah,
that obviously you're supposed to be like, that lousy computer. But honestly, yeah, no, you shouldn't be
like
doing that
it
stuff.
made sense.
I mean, look at what happened last week.
That's right.
Friggin' Kirk goes down and gets bit by the Mugatu.
In engineering, Dr. Daystrom examines the situation, but explains that the M5s simply turned off the power to those decks since they were unoccupied crew quarters and there was no one there who needed it. Spock also observes that the M5 is drawing more power than before, to which Daystrom simply responds that the M5 requires more power. Kirk again challenges Daystrom that the M5 can only process information given to it. It cannot make value judgments. Daystrom dismisses this and describes the M5 as a whole new approach to logic systems. The arrival of an unidentified vessel cuts off the conversation and brings Kirk and Spock to the bridge. Dr. McCoy is already there, since sickbay was also shut down by the M5. The Enterprise is approached by two ships, the Lexington and the USS Excalibur. They engage in an unscheduled war games drill. The M5 responds swiftly to simulated attacks, hitting back the enemy ships and maneuvering more quickly than it would have were a human in command. Kirk tries to be gracious towards the computer's ability, telling Spock that such applications might be practical, but Spock tells Kirk that although true, such a thing as a computer running a starship would be undesirable. He goes on to explain that a key attribute of human command is loyalty to one man, and this should never change. Captain Kirk, whose ego has been somewhat beaten up by all that has been going on recently, appreciates the comment. Meanwhile, the M5 is seen to be drawing increasing amounts of power. Wesley communicates back, awarding the test to the M5 and jokingly calls Kirk a dunce.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was really fun. I really like that interaction between Spock and Kirk,
Oh yeah.
because you expect Spock to be all on board and he's fascinated by computers and the science and
Right.
the scientist guy. And then all of a sudden he's like, no, it's not a ship I'd want to serve on. It's like, oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
thanks.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, dude.
His affection for Kirk definitely shines in this episode.
Yeah. But that is true. Loyalty is a big part of,
Oh yeah. Totally.
the Dunsel thing was really, really funny.
Super funny, right?
And
Yeah.
he just walks off. Everyone's like, what does it mean? What does it mean, Spock? What does it mean? It's like, oh, it basically means he's Dunzo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the thing, too,
Hmm.
is that the whole point of humans in space is exploration.
Yeah.
And, now all of a sudden this scientist guy is saying oh, we don't need to do that. It's
Oh
too
yeah.
it's too dangerous or whatever.
Right.
So I just thought that whole thing was just kind of such a leap
Yeah, I know
for
what you
like
mean.
even like for like even like Starfleet to be like, oh yeah, if this new computer works, we'll just send the computer ships out there
Yeah.
and they'll do all this stuff for us. It's like, well, where's I don't understand. Like, where's the enjoyment in that?
Yeah. It's like he makes good points that like it's later in the episode, but he makes good points that like why why go out here and fight for all this stuff when like we don't own it and we can't own it, and people are out here dying for really nothing
Yeah.
and dying, and he's like he wants people to be safe. He's trying to like stop people from needlessly dying. And I kept as I was watching the episode, it's probably what you were thinking too, is I kept thinking like, okay, so they're flying around and it's just a computer ship, and maybe like no people are on the ship or like a very small amount of people are on the ship,
Yeah,
and they
right.
meet like an alien culture, and it's just like, does that mean like how would they handle that? And I think
Yeah.
maybe at best what he is suggesting, he doesn't say this, but what he's might, if you read between the lines, is basically like this Constitution class ship would essentially go around, scan planets, look at things, and then report back, and then the Federation would make a dedicated decision to like send a different type of ship to that planet to investigate, to like make first contact or meet new aliens or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise and the Lexington and the Excalibur and other Constitution class ships would just keep roaming around and be protectors, and the Federation would not have to like juggle two things, which is like space exploration and making friends in space, but also be like galactic protectors and all this stuff. So
Yeah. I get that too. I mean, that makes sense.
yeah,
I just think that's kind of a pretty slippery slope to go down when you're
it is.
sending out basically like armed drones into space. Like that could be considered an immediate like threat or
Right,
act of war,
right, totally. Yeah,
So
but
yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, I also thought it was interesting. Maybe it's just me, but I would have thought they would just do the thing I think they do in like real life with like submarines or something, or they do with battleships. Is
Yeah.
like they're like, "Oh, fire this thing," and then they pretend aim it, and then it's like they pretend fire, and then the other ship is like, "Yes, that's a hit to this thing. We've been hit." Instead
Yeah.
with this episode, like they just lower their power rating of their phasers and still shoot each other, but it does like negligible damage.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an interesting thing that you're actually shooting each other.
Yeah, it's like basically shooting each other with like, light beams or laser tag essentially.
Right.
It was kind of cool. It was cool to see them like do that type of stuff,
Sure. Oh, sure.
like testing stuff out. It was interesting.
Yeah, I thought you would. I mean, this part and then later, one of the reasons I kept it in here was one because of the name of the channel, right? So I figured you'd enjoy seeing where I got the word Daystrom from.
Yeah.
But also one of the reasons I kept it on the list, even though that's kind of like a weak reason to show you, is like, hey, the channel's named this, and here's the guy. The
Yeah.
other the other reason was I thought you would really enjoy like seeing more than one Constitution class ship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like, in Enterprise, you see maybe like the Columbia like once
Right,
or twice.
right, exactly.
So it's cool. It's cool seeing like a group
Even
of
in
ships
Strange
out
New
there.
Worlds, you don't really see a lot of other Federation ships. Like you see some ships docked and and you see like alien ships,
Right. Yeah.
but like you don't see that many Strange New World ships. Okay, dismayed by this, Kirk goes to his quarters to contemplate the increasingly successful M5. McCoy arrives with a Finagle's folly. McCoy tells Kirk that Daystrom may be attempting to recapture the past glory of winning the Nobel Prize and the Magnus Prize at an early age. Kirk states that Albert Einstein, Kazanga, and Sitar did not produce assembly line genius innovations and that Daystrom is seeking to contribute another technological advancement to society. McCoy responds that Daystrom's obsession with multitronics can be seen with his rejection of the M1 through M4 multitronic units. The M5 represents Daystrom's need to prove his superiority to himself. Their conversation is cut off as the Enterprise sensors detect a slow-moving ship. It is the automated ore freighter Woden, and not a drill this time. M5 abruptly changes the Enterprise's course to intercept the ship, speeding up to warp 3. It then engages the ship with photon torpedoes, destroying it, even though it presented absolutely no threat to the Enterprise, and then resumes its prior course. Captain Kirk tries to disengage the M5 in the process, but neither he, Sulu, nor Scott are able to regain manual control of the ship. Dr. Daystrom still tries to make excuses and explanations for this, but there is clearly something very wrong. Kirk, Spock, and Scott go to engineering, and Kirk tries to approach the M5 to shut it off, only to be knocked back by a force field, learning that the M5 unit will protect itself as well.
Yeah, I like that thing immediately has yeah, bad.
Don't touch me. This episode specifically, even though we haven't watched all of them, just this one that we watch, this is incredibly, it's very, very close to how the movies are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like not necessarily like being a crazy like out of touch inventor is going amok. Like that's not really true. But the way that how the characters behave and like the beats that happen in the thing, it's very, very much like the movies. Where the movie starts, you learn the basics of the film, they go on, and then you have these scenes where it's like Kirk and McCoy talk to each other, and Kirk is very much like, oh, like, am I an idiot for feeling this way? Like, should I feel this way? And then McCoy like calms him down, and then you have like the thing with Spock where Spock does this like he appreciates Kirk in his own way. And then you have this scene where McCoy brings in the drinks and they drink, and then he talks about the poem. And it's it's very much like you could cut around the conversation and like use this quote that he talks about as like inspirational Star Trek, where he's like, have you ever heard of the poem? And it's like, just give me a tall ship
Oh, yeah.
and a star to steer her by. And then he gets like kind of like sentimental about being on the water and like with the wind.
Feel the wind on your back.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very much very, very much like the movies. There are a couple movies where this happens.
I remember you telling me before that Star Trek is always kind of like in these moments of time that like something's going wrong that you shouldn't really be talking. They basically do like Shakespeare. They talk about these really deep like poems from the 21st century.
Yeah. All constantly. The funny thing too is I think it's either into Star Trek Into Darkness or Star Trek Beyond. Like Bones comes to him and gives him I think Romulan ale.
Mm.
And he drinks, and they drink to the fact that he's now older than his dad is. When his dad passed away, he's now like he's either the same age or he's a year older than him.
Mm.
So they do a lot of borrowing from obviously the original series.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen those movies in a while, so I can't really
Yeah.
remember. All I remember from those movies is they play Sabotage
Yep.
by the Beastie Boys.
It's also in this scene that makes me laugh is like, okay, the ship breaks away, it destroys the ore freighter, and everybody except for Daystrom is like, what? And it's like,
Yeah.
this is awful.
Yeah,
And
you're
then
lucky there
Daystrom,
wasn't people on board and
yeah, and then Daystrom's like, well,
oh, simple miscalculation. Nothing to worry about. Well, as long as Federation ships don't randomly show up to do any more war games, I think we'll be all right on this one. Then Aura's like, Captain, 4 Federation vehicles are approaching. Like, oh my God.
So we're at the halfway point. So go down to the comment section and write.
Daystrom's bad day. Daystrom's horrible, no good, bad day.
Oh no. Captain's log, stardate 4731.3. The M5 Multitronic unit has taken over total control of the Enterprise. Kirk is infuriated now. He demands Daystrom shut off the unit, but Daystrom insists that he be allowed to first correct. Kirk has Scott attempt again to cut its power, but when Ensign Harper, working with a Trident scanner, moves in to cut the power, the M5 makes a direct connection to the warp engines using a power beam of its own devising. As it does so, Harper is caught in the beam and vaporized. Shocked and enraged, Kirk berates Daystrom for being unable and unwilling to deactivate the M5. Daystrom continues to excuse the M5's behavior, insisting that Harper simply got in the way, and that his death was not a deliberate act. Kirk snaps back at Daystrom. How long will it be before all of us simply get in the way? In the briefing room, the senior staff collaborate on a plan to gain back control by focusing a certain relay unit between the M5 and the bridge. McCoy goes to Daystrom to convince him to shut off the M5. Daystrom, on the other hand, defends the M5, saying it's learning, and further, that the advance the M5 represents would liberate man from hazardous duties, saving life. McCoy notes later to Kirk that Daystrom reacts toward the computer as a father would to his child. Even if the child went antisocial and killed a person, a father would protect the child.
Yeah, that was a funny scene where Bones goes in there and like talks to him.
Oh yeah.
And he was very much like, I'll never shut it down. You can't do this.
Yeah.
I'll never do it. And then Bones just goes and talks to Kirk and he's like, yeah, I don't think he's gonna shut it down.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it was a little bit more to the conversation than that. It was basically he's basically a madman, you know? He's basically saying it's learning, it's doing exactly what I designed it to do.
I designed it to do, yeah.
It's doing exactly what I programmed it to do. And then he's like, all right. And he tells Kirk, like, yeah, he won't shut it down. It's like, well, why? I don't know. Kind of like a kid. He thinks it's a kid. I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it. Want to have more drinks? like, dude, it's a little bit more serious than you're making it out to be.
Yeah.
He was kind of
True.
raging like a lunatic in there, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the minute that it killed,
yeah, right.
And he's like, he stepped in front of the beams. Like, no, the computer chose that exact moment to hook up to that power outlet. You know, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if like your teenage is being bad, you know, you're gonna be like, don't do that. And that's what I'm doing with this computer. The computer killed a person and blew up an oil rig, and I was like, hey, computer, don't do that. So we should be good now. We should be all right.
We should be fine.
Call in the warships. It's like, dude, you are. He's out of his gourd.
Yeah, yeah.
He's out of his gourd.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, the second that Ensign Harper gets vaporized, I was like, oh yeah, that happens in this.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, yeah, well, things happen.
Yeah, I mean,
And I think how Kirk's like, absolutely not. Things don't just happen. Turn this thing off. I don't care.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So
oh,
what I thought in that scene was like, oh man, is that tricorder all right? Is that
yeah.
Trident scanner make it, or is that gone?
Oh no. It was fine.
Yeah. Well, that's good engineering.
Blip, 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 blip.
Yeah, I like that thing. I was really trying to like study the actual like port that they were like
Oh,
plugging it into.
I did like though. I know it was like very 60s older television, but I did like the fact that when Harper got the beam, he didn't go like, oh, and then die. It was just like, he's gone. He's
Yeah. No, I did. I like that scene. I was not so that kind of caught me off guard, honestly, is that scene where he's just like, all right, let me just see what it's like, oh wow, they're not messing around.
Nope.
But again, that's kind of why the ending of this to me is like
Yeah.
well, it's a weird place to leave it. But yeah, we'll get there.
Well, Kirk and Daystrom observe Spock and Scott attempt to gain control, but Sulu and Chekhov report it is unsuccessful. They realize that M5 had rerouted the controls while leaving the relay they were working on live as a decoy. Spock notes the illogical behavior of the M5 unit. Daystrom explains that he impressed human engrams onto the circuits. The relays are not unlike the synapses in the brain, Daystrom explains to Captain Kirk. M5 thinks, Captain. Uhura reports the 4 Federation ships as part of the scheduled war exercise. Uhura reports the 4 Federation ships as part of the scheduled war exercise. But now, Kirk fears the M5 will not treat it as a drill. I know that's like totally a space odyssey where like Hal, he's like, open the pod bay doors, Hal. And he's like, I'm sorry, Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave, if I can't do that.
And a lot of other science fiction stuff where the computer goes bad, right?
Yeah.
But I always like when it's like, oh no. When they go in and they're doing their thing and blah blah blah. And then also it's like, okay. And it's like it didn't work. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, the computer, it fooled us.
It figured out what we were doing. It's listening to us through the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that scene because it's Scotty. It takes Scotty and Spock like in the Jeffrey tube to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then Kirk's like, all right, Sulu and Chekhov, you're good to go. And they're like, ha ha, oh yeah. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. These switches, Captain, all the switches are dead.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, apparently we still don't have control, Captain. And it's like, well, shoot.
We're gonna die.
This would be a really bad time to go to commercial break.
Yeah. Also, Daystrom being like, please, no, please, no.
No,
please.
no, don't hurt my babies.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, my child. Kirk's like,
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, no. Like, no.
yeah. No,
Please,
like, no,
please.
don't do it. I don't do it. No, you mustn't. You mustn't. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, it didn't work. And he's like, yeah, I wasn't worried. I wasn't worried at all. I knew the whole time.
Oh, oof, yeah.
I knew that the computer would reroute itself. And they're like, wow, this computer really is acting more human. He's like, oh, yeah, I put my brain in it. I put part of my brain in it. You sure are leaving out a lot of details about this computer.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah, shoot. Forgot I uploaded like my entire
Yeah.
brain chemistry to
Oh,
it.
that's right. Yeah.
Oh, shoot. And then even like later on, they're like, all right, Daystrom, like this has really gone on too far now. Like, what are we? And he's like, I really don't know, Captain. I honestly really don't know. It's like, do you? Do you? Because you've left a lot out so far. You've really been quite dark about
Yeah.
this whole situation. Nah. Mm-mm.
Not really sure.
No idea.
But here's a really funny thing. I don't know if you caught it. So they're in the Jeffries tube. Scotty's up there and he's putting the things and he's doing all of this fancy stuff. There is a shot of Spock behind him, and he has you're gonna know what they're called. But he has the things that like you put in between and it like measures either the pipe or it measures like
Yeah.
the gap between things,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't know what they're called.
I think calipers. That's
Yeah,
it.
calipers. Yeah, he has like calipers and he's literally just like pushing it up against the
Yeah.
wall and he's just like,
3 inches.
Yeah, and it's like, what is that doing?
And then then they come out of the Jeffrey tube. He hands, or Scotty takes the tools from him,
Yeah.
and it's like one of those yellow like mallets, and like those metal calipers. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, space tools.
Yeah. It's totally like, here, Leonard Nimoy, just like just
Yeah,
do something with this. Like,
just
hey,
play with this. I don't. We got nothing. We ran out of the budget.
yeah. Probably really
Ran
what
out of
happened was they got him in the Jeffries tube and they didn't think that why would like just to have Spock stand behind him. They're like, well, if Spock's standing behind him, like he's got to be doing something. Otherwise, he's
Yeah.
just staring at Scotty's like back and butt. Like, what's Spock doing in the Jeffries tube?
Oh, you
It's like
know.
they're like, here, quick, give him
Oh
this thing.
my.
Hey, oh,
Well, no, because it's like, yeah, you have that scene where Scotty specifically is like, well, it would only take me about an hour if Mr. Spock helps me.
yeah,
And they're like, well, all right, well, you have less than an hour. And he's like, oh, all right, let's go, Spock. And then Spock's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not an engineer.
yeah.
That's why it's always funny to me when McCoy is always like, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's like you have Spock, who's a science officer, and he just is like, "Oh, what's that, Scotty? You need me to take apart this like giant piece of machinery? Yeah, I can do that." Spock can do anything,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, like Starfleet officers are trained to like basically be able to work on the ship no matter what. Like
Yeah.
know the main functionality of like how the ship works and everything. The other thing that I kept thinking the whole episode was like just run into the engine room and just
Yeah.
shoot the computer with a phaser, like just blow it up. Put your phaser on like the highest setting.
It's got so many shields now.
No, you can recalibrate that's the thing, right? Is like you have other episodes of Star Trek where they do that type of stuff where they're like, oh, let's see what kind of energy this thing is putting off, and you're like, oh, okay, well now we can re-amplify the phaser to like ignore that type of power output and shoot through it.
Oh.
They do that stuff all the time,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, we re-engineered, we reverse engineered what this thing is doing, and we put that in the phaser. So now we can shoot through the phaser.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it.
It's gone.
Okay. Time for trivia.
Oh, not again. All right, now you're overacting.
So originally it was a teleplay called Spec by Lawrence N. Wolfe. And then DC Fontana rewrote it. So it says mathematician Lawrence N. Wolfe wrote the original story for this episode. which was based on his fascination with computers. However, it emphasized the M5 unit and its creator, Dr. Daystrom, and barely featured the Enterprise crew. It was heavily rewritten by DC Fontana, who focused the storyline around Kirk's fear of being replaced by a machine.
Why would they write an episode where they're like, "Hey, this was a really cool idea. You know what I like about this episode is that none of the cast is in it."
Yeah, who
Like, oh
knows?
yeah, people will definitely tune into that. You know what people love about their favorite show is when all the favorite characters are not in it.
Yeah,
They love it.
we'd love to see this guy we've never seen before and him and talk to his computer the whole episode.
Yeah, they love to like wait a week for their show to be on, and then they sit down with like, their TV dinner, and it's like, "Hey, you know this guy?" Like, no. Like, all right, well, this is the whole episode.
This episode was a social commentary on the American job losses caused by increased mechanization during the 1960s.
Yeah, it only got worse.
It's true.
But at least we stopped putting kids in machinery to clean them. So
True. At least in this country.
okay. Yeah, that's true.
Producer John Meredith Lucas bought Wolf's unsolicited teleplay because it could be made fast and cheap using only the existing Enterprise sets and decided to direct the episode himself.
Weird. I just always envisioned that it's just like a group of writers
So,
on a show and they just come up with stuff.
so typically, from my unlimited understanding,
Unlimited.
no, limited
Oh,
understanding,
limited understanding.
is shows that have probably shows like 24 and like Lost. Shows that
Yeah.
you need to have watched the last episode to understand this episode.
Oh, yeah, they
I
definitely
think
have weekly writers.
you would have a group of writers who that's what they're writing. They write this entire arc of this season. But shows that are more like sitcoms and more like standalones like Star Trek is, where it's like every episode could be completely different. You don't need to have watched last week's episode to understand this episode. You can hire writers out, right? You can just be like, hey, we like this guy. He makes really good short stories. Or, just like people like you and I, you write a story about Star Trek and then you solicit it. You say, hey, I have a short story up for sale. I'd like $1,000 for it. And then you try to get it in the hands, or you try to get it like they show in movies. Like the guy has I have a screenplay for this movie. Like, will you take it? Like people do that kind of stuff.
Oh.
They just do it through like agencies and things or people that they know.
What have we been doing then?
Well, we don't have any connections to Hollywood.
Well, I mean, that's the easy part.
And I think nowadays, between like social media and all that stuff, like I think it's more of a game of who you know rather than what you can do.
That's interesting, though. I guess I never really thought about it because every week you do this and you say like, yeah, they bought the screenplay. So I was like, so they basically just buy like a short story like some dude was gonna like put into like
Yeah,
a book.
they do it a lot. Yeah, they do it a lot. You'd be surprised. I think a lot of shows, especially before like how TV shows are kind of now, like the modernization of shows. I think you'd be surprised of how many shows that you grew up watching. Like a lot of the episodes, not every one of them, but a lot of them were like other people had wrote them, and then then they use it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. James Doohan, Scotty, provided the voices of the M5 computer and the unseen Commodore Enright.
Oh, Scotty did?
Yep.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on that.
You can hear his accent. You can hear his.
I heard him have a little bit of an accent
in the Commodore, right?
Yeah.
But not in the computer, no. You'll like this. Commodore's Wesley high-backed command chair is the same one used as the ISS Enterprise command chair in Mirror Mirror.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, the one of the Facebook groups I'm in for the Kirk chair builders.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy in there who's like debating whether or not to add the high back for the Mirrorverse.
Oh.
I was like, that would be kind of cool.
So this
Like
says
the
a close up
throne.
of the three scanning heads on the Trident scanner in this episode reveal them to be the reused tips from the disruptor weapons from A Taste of Armageddon, which we didn't watch.
Yeah, but I have to now.
Yeah, it's a decent episode, but it doesn't really perpetuate anything that you've
Yeah,
learned about.
but it shows a cool new gun.
Yeah, it does. This is the second time Kirk tells McCoy he would like to be on a long sea voyage. The first time happened in Balance of Terror.
Yeah, yeah. Pike's thing is that he wants to be on a farm.
Yeah,
He wants to be on a ranch, and Kirk's thing is he wants to be a pirate.
yeah, right.
He
You're gonna like this one.
thinks
This is the fourth time Kirk talks a computer to death.
this is the fourth time.
The fourth time. He used this
Wow.
skill in The Changeling, The Return of the Archons, and I Mud. Yep.
Oh, I mud.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's funny. As soon as that scene was happening and Daystrom's like, I don't know, I can't get to it. And I was like, Kirk is gonna literally like make this thing like stop computing because he's gonna be like, what? What?
Why?
Why? Why you do this? Why? Have you seen that meme of like that preacher that keeps why? Why?
Maybe, yeah.
Why?
Okay, and finally, the remastered version replaced the stock footage used in this episode. The space station, now named Starbase 6, used images of Deep Space Station K7 from Trouble with Tribbles in the original broadcast. In the remastered version, it was remodeled to look like Starbase 47, as seen in the Star Trek Vanguard series of novels. The Woden, which used footage of the SS Botany Bay from Space Seed, was redesigned as an Antares-type vessel. The crippled USS Excalibur, which reused footage of the USS Constellation from the Doomsday Machine, and the space battle were redesigned with new computer-generated images. Okay, that was trivia. Let's get into the conclusion. As the War Games exercise begins, M5 has prevented all communication. The Lexington, Excalibur, USS Hood, and USS Potemkin are approaching. Daystrom assures that the M5 will treat it as a drill. But then the M5 attacks the Lexington and Excalibur with all weapons at full power, crippling the Excalibur and killing its entire crew in the process. Despite knowing that M5 would have full tactical and functional control of the Enterprise, Commodore Wesley blames Kirk for the attack. When Wesley cannot raise the Enterprise by radio, he requests approval from Starfleet Command to destroy her. Perhaps what they're trying to state is like Commodore Wesley, even though at the end of the episode, Kirk doesn't really seem to have an issue with Wesley, it seems like Wesley has an issue with Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Because he calls him Dunsel, which is kind of like an a-hole thing to do. And
Yeah,
then,
considering like he is also a ship captain. So
right,
it's like,
right,
no, you're gonna be replaced too then, idiot. Like what's your
right. Yeah. And then in this scene, like it said, like even though he knows that the M5 is in control of the Enterprise, he's like, "Oh my God, Kirk, like what are you doing?"
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Like, all right, Kirk, stop shooting at us. It's like, no, it's obviously not Kirk. He didn't even want the thing on board to begin with.
No.
And now you're like, oh yeah, he's shooting at us with full power. Like, why would he be shooting with you at full power? Like, it's
I thought of you
make me
totally.
take this computer on board.
I thought of you totally when it cuts to this one scene with Chekhov and Chekhov, like they're about to engage one of the ships, like the Lexington or the Excalibur, I don't remember. And
Mhm.
it cuts to Chekhov, and he's like this.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
was yeah. I was gonna send you a picture later for like your
oh,
thumbnail of me doing that. Yeah,
like,
yeah. He's like, we're closing in within phaser range.
yeah, like, oh. It just made me laugh.
I like Chekhov this episode because even when everybody's like fighting on board,
Yeah,
and then that thing, the ship finally like basically shoots the Lexington, I think, like disables it.
yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh, look at what you've done! Look at what you've done, Daystrom!" And then Chekhov's like, changing course, heading
Oh,
in the
yeah,
other direction.
yeah. Unfazed.
Yeah.
Chekhov has seen some things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Lexington's been disabled. We're changing course, Captain.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Thanks for the update.
Thanks for the update, buddy.
Thank you. But that's kind of your job, right? So like I totally get
Yeah, yeah.
you're just gonna tell the captain what's going on. Like you're just gonna give him updates.
Right. Now that the M5 has committed murder, Kirk confronts Daystrom, convincing him that the M5 is doing more than originally designed. He demands that Daystrom attempt to reason with the M5, and Daystrom admits it was his own engrams that he implanted on the machine. However, he goes mad in the effort, realizing his reputation is at stake. In his delirium, Daystrom violently lashes out at Kirk, but is subdued by a Vulcan nerve pinch from Spock.
Yeah.
Yay! You get a lot of the Trek things in this episode,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah. I
get
was very,
Vulcan
very
neck
happy.
pinch. You get the red shirt getting killed. Yeah, you get
Yeah. Yeah,
quoting
that's
of a
right.
poem. Like you get some.
Yeah. Yeah, I like red shirts getting killed. That's my favorite.
That's your favorite, yeah, I know.
It doesn't happen enough, in my opinion.
It was really funny though to have Daystrom be like, "Okay, listen, you're right. I can talk to it. You're right. It's my brain, Kirk. I can talk to it. I'll." And then he gets over there and he's like, "Okay, M5. Now listen. What you just did, right, was wrong, right? You murdered people." And it's like, "Well, I was defending myself." And it's like, "Well, yeah, okay." And he keeps going down this path and blah blah. And then he's like, "And then those fools, they thought they could call me names." Like you're like, oh
You
no.
did this. We did this. I did it. You don't. I. We. We. And of course, like, he's on the verge of having a mental breakdown. Oh, really? You picked up on that? You should have picked up on that from your first conversation with him. That I'll show Susie Tompkins when
Yeah.
she said in third grade that I wasn't going to be nothing.
Oh man. And he's like,
Like,
you make all
wow.
these inventions, and then they just stand on your
Yes.
back and they take all of the praise.
You're still smart. You're still smart.
Yeah.
You'll always. I won't. We won't.
Yeah, totally. It's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was good.
Yeah. McCoy hauls Daystrom off to sickbay, and Spock notes the self-preservation that the M5 is displaying is probably a consequence of Daystrom's engram imprinting. Hearing that Starfleet has agreed that Wesley can destroy the Enterprise, Kirk himself speaks to the computer, trying to make it recognize its responsibility in the deaths of hundreds of people, as there are no more life readings on the Excalibur, and reminding it of the penalty for murder. Feeling Daystrom's regret over the deaths, the M5's computerized voice is tinged with sadness as it announces, "This unit must die." It then shuts down, dropping the deflector shields and leaving itself open to attack to atone for its crime. Spock and Scott then disconnect the computer from the ship's control. With communications not quite restored, Kirk orders that the shields be kept down, gambling that Wesley will be both compassionate and cautious and break off the battle. Sure enough, Wesley does so, much to the crew's relief. Why?
Why? What
Yeah.
is the penalty for death? It's death. Then what should you do about it? I should die. I should
Yeah.
processing, kill myself.
Kill myself. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But okay, this is like besides the ending that's here in the next stretch. This is the only other thing I thought was like I thought it was kind of dumb.
No.
So the unit's like, okay, I have to die. It shuts itself down and it drops it drops the shields, deflector screens, whatever. And it's like, okay, it's obviously waiting to get shot at because it knows like this is how I'm gonna die. Like let the other ships blow me up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk's like, okay, like, well, let me hail the other ships. And they're like, no, that's gonna take way too long. But they have shields, like access to shields. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't you think fixing a line of communication, which is like literally like turning a switch onto a satellite, like whatever they have. It's like, why would that take so long?
No, because they have to show why humans being captain is better than ships being captain.
Right. And it is solely for that purpose. But I felt it was like,
yeah.
To me,
he's like, well, Captain, we got shields. And he's like, I don't need shields. I need comms. He's like, well, that's going to be about 3 hours to get comms.
Yeah. I think personally what would have been nice is if the thing was the shields were up and Wesley shot and Kirk is like, give me comms. And it's like, well, that shot just damaged communications. It's going to take me like a few minutes to get it back up and running. And he's like, I need him up now. He's like, there's nothing I can do. And he's like, well, then drop shields. And then they're like, what do you mean drop shields? Like they're opening firing on us. And then he does. And then the captain's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? I feel like that should have been the beat rather than here they come. And he's like, open comms. And he's like, I can't. And he's like, okay, keep shields down. And they're like, keep shields down. And then when the captain arrives, he's like, this could be a trap that the M5 could be doing, but I'm not going to think that's what's happening. It's like, you should exactly think that's what's happening.
Only stupid Starfleet captain would use the old possum routine.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That must mean Kirk is finally back in the chair.
Only a Dunsel would do something like this.
Only an absolute moron. Well, Cook finally regained over the computer.
Yeah.
Torpedoes full spread.
Too funny. Way too funny.
That's funny. Yeah. But I kind of liked that. I kind of liked how it was showing you, like...
Oh, sure. This was funny. That's all.
It was funny. No, it was. Because that could have been, like, terrible.
Yeah, right. Photon torpedoes.
Yeah.
Dr. Daystrom, meanwhile, is cared for in sickbay under sedation and heavy restraint to await transfer to a local rehabilitation facility under McCoy's recommendation. Kirk orders that Sulu plot a return course to Starbase 6. Sulu does so, and the Enterprise heads off through space. So for some reason, the recap didn't want to talk about that conversation in the turbo lift.
Mm-mm. Oh, I bet if we took your brain out. It would
Yeah.
be very illogical.
Yeah.
I liked early in the episode. They didn't talk about the recap. Didn't talk about it, but and he says Spock, if you say this is fascinating,
Oh.
I swear to God. And he's like, no, it is interesting. Ha! I got him.
Yeah, that is a great scene. Yeah. And then when he does, I think McCoy like really rolls his eyes too. He's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, because even like later on, there's a scene where something's going on, and after he Vulcan nerve pinches him, he's like fascinating.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah, he says, I
pretty.
simply maintain that computers are more efficient than human beings, not better. McCoy says, but which do you prefer to have around, Mr. Spock? And then Spock goes on to say some words, and at the end he says, I believe I have already answered that question, Doctor. And then where it ends, where they have to do the dumb thing, and Spock says, it would be most interesting to impress your memory engrams on a computer, Doctor. The resulting torrential flood of illogic would be most entertaining. Got him.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, so that concludes the episode, our review of the episode. But before we end the episode, we do the thing that everyone's been waiting for.
Caleb? Caleb.
So, Caleb, who gets the Erica Ortegas Award for being the most unlikable?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Daystrom.
Ooh,
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah. I didn't like him.
That's all right.
As
Yeah,
soon as he showed up and started telling McCoy where to be on Kirk's ship, I knew right off the bat I don't like this guy.
God, this guy is not for me.
This guy needs to get off the ship.
Okay, who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award for being most forgettable?
The engineer that gets blown up.
Okay. Yeah, Harper. I think Ensign Harper was his name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He died in the
Need
line
the
of duty.
rocks. Who gets the Trip Tucker Award for being the MVP?
Probably Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk saying to the computer, why?
Why? Why? Yeah, you would think that Spock would have had like a logical communication.
No. Computers can't fight computers.
No, that's true.
That's not what the Terminator movies are all about. You can't have that.
Yeah, that's true.
What gets the Shran Award for the best action sequence?
I'm gonna say it's when Kirk gets hit with the shield
Oh,
and he slides halfway across the engine. Those must be slippery floors.
Yeah, very slippery.
Because
Or
he
very
throws
slippery
himself.
boots.
He throws himself and he's like slides. I like how it shoots him in the face, but he jumps to the left. That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
I liked that quite a bit.
Just how that shield operated. It just like
Yeah.
like
Wow.
So what gets the NX award for some sweet ship stuff?
Pretty much have to say the M5 is like the best ship stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be the Trident scanner again.
Oh. Yeah, I already picked it once.
That's all right. That's okay. No, the M5.
I do like the Trident. I do like the Trident scanner, obviously, but I've seen the Trident scanner before.
True.
And I like the M5 as like a set piece.
So are you gonna
The screen was cool.
put that in the corner of your basement? The M5 computer? Like
no, but honestly,
the
I did
rotating.
think about kind of like over by like where like the gas line and stuff comes in.
Oh yeah.
So on Kirk's chair, on the captain's chair, right, he's got that switch box for the
Oh
computer.
yeah. Mhm.
And they have like a good shot of it like from the side and like it's got vinyl written on it and it says like M5
M5, yeah.
and it's got all the switches.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, that would be kind of cool.
You should you should label it like M6 or something, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not. It's the better one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a question I had too. Like moving forward, is
They
there's still like
no,
that computer? No.
no, because they move on from they explain it. They upgrade their computer systems.
Right.
So like Daystrom, it's like a different guy. I don't know if they ever say who designs the computer systems in later on.
Yeah, right. Because he should be in prison.
Yeah, right. Well, he's in a rehabilitation center. So
Yeah.
But
Well, I was just gonna say, like, if they went out, if now in like now you're telling me that in like next gen, it's like, yeah,
no,
this is the M10. It's like, why is this guy still making computers after
no,
what
no,
happened?
no, they don't. No. Yeah, because I mean, you think about it, in like the 20 years between the two shows, it's like I think it's like almost 100 years in between the two series, like
Yeah.
in story. So like their technology is more advanced than Kirk's stuff.
Well, good. I was gonna say because that would make the ending of this episode, like, in my opinion, even worse. To be
Oh
like,
yeah, they just
oh,
keep.
that was crazy how that all happened. Well, anyway,
Well, in a weird way,
maybe
I mean, they still end up using it because he designed all the like computer systems
yeah,
on the Enterprise. So like in a weird way, they still are using his like inventions, even though he's
yeah.
like out of his mind.
But he doesn't get like rehabilitated and then immediately
No,
starts like, well, I got to work on the M6 now.
no, no.
So
No,
that's good.
no, he's not like Eric Soong at the end of the Augments episode.
Oh, yeah.
He's not like that guy.
I hate augments.
So, what gets the Porthos Award for being the cheesiest thing of the episode?
Captain Kirk being like 5 foot was able to hold Daystrom from going
Oh,
up the Jeffries tube, even though he's like clearly seven something.
yeah,
He could have just like reached up and like grabbed the tool.
yeah.
Kirk's like holding him and he's like, no, no.
But I mean, Kirk did fight a Gorn and an Augment, so
Well, Kirk is like, I think Kirk is an augment with his secret strength, you know?
yeah, yeah. There is a really funny thing that we won't be able to talk about for probably like 15 years.
Oh,
But
God.
when we get there,
Can't wait.
when we get there,
I'm so excited.
and finally, what gets the Enterprise Award for the best scene of the episode?
I'm going to say when Bones brings the drinks.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I really like that too. How he walks in the room and he's got like the towel over the tray.
Yeah.
Kirk's like, I'm really not hungry. And he's like, oh, this ain't food. This is booze. And he's like, oh, right.
And then when he drinks it, he's like, oh. It's like this is one of your better
Your
prescriptions.
better prescriptions. Yeah. Yeah. I like that scene.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite scene of the episode.
I think everybody's gonna agree with you because like that is a very quotable thing when he talks about the ship and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that whole scene. I mean, the other one was like, Kirk making the computer blow itself up is pretty good, but
Yeah.
apparently that has happened a few times before.
It has. To the point where
man.
Captain Alimar is like, at least it wasn't a computer behind a wall. Like,
Yeah, well, this computer was out in the open, so
yeah, different.
not the same.
Not the same.
This will be like we're like, yeah, this episode's pretty good, and comment now on this episode and be like, "Oh, I hate this episode."
Maybe. That's where you take this opportunity to go down to the comment section and you write what you thought of the episode. Let us know. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
feature your comment in next week's episode. You can even tell us what kind of awards you might give for the episode. What was your favorite action sequence? Things like that.
Yeah, it's cool. We like hearing from you guys, so
Yeah.
keep it up.
Adds to the conversation.
Yeah, it gives us a lot to talk about in the beginning before we start talking about the episode. So it's perfect.
Yeah. Gives us a lot more to talk about when you like hearing us talk.
Yeah. I don't know why anyone would. I don't even like hearing us talk.
I hate it. I put it on mute the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even listen to it when I edit videos.
That's why they're terrible.
Yeah. But some people comment on my videos and be like, "Hey, there's no audio." Be like, "Oh, perfect. You don't need it."
Captions work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
next week's episode is the season 2 finale.
Woo.
Assignment Earth.
Oh no.
So that'll be real fun for Caleb. Look forward to that.
Oh God, what does that mean? And then we get into season 3, which I hear is some of the best Trek has to offer. So that's going to be
Absolutely.
great. It's so good. There's 40 episodes, and we're only talking about like 3, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. And you're gonna love
each and every
single one of them.
Oh God.
So if you like the
That's
video, like it. If you disliked it, dislike it. Share with all your friends and family and Trek enthusiasts. And subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss when this episode comes out, usually weekly, or Star Trek History, which comes out weekly, or our Star Trek Adventures RPG, which comes out typically bi-weekly during the wintertime. But as always, you can go over to Caleb's channel, and I think Caleb's got a little treat for all you TOS fans out there.
Yeah, it's really funny that like I just decided recently that like, hey, I want to make a Trident scanner. And so yeah, I put that video out on Thursday. So yeah, go over to my channel and check it out. It's up and it's great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I want to see in his comment section and in my comment section, I want to see people that watched the video and then made it themselves. It's not that hard. I've sat down. I'm not like Caleb. I don't have all of this like innate talent. I've sat down. I've made stuff. It's just some foam. You'll spend probably under $100, probably under $50.
Oh,
you can make your own.
That Trident scanner will cost you about, let's see, $9 for the foam, $10 for glue. Yeah. I mean, you're talking $20, and you can get more projects too. It's not just like the one.
Yeah.
Man, if you like the Trident scanner,
there you go.
Stay tuned next week because I use the same Trident tip and I'm making a disruptor. Yeah.
Taste of Armageddon Sonic Disruptor. So look for that. I like that it was super dark, like you can't, like it's like hidden from what?
Ammo.
Is it because it's black, or is Zoom like messing with it?
It's black.
Oh, because you haven't finished painting it.
Yeah, I spray painted it black.
I thought it was like a silhouette of like, you're not allowed to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's like blurred.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's coming up.
Yeah, you can't have a Trident scanner without a Sonic Disruptor.
No. In fact, you should make the disruptor first and cut the tips off. Stick them on the Trident scanner.
All right, Caleb, take us out.
All right, Retrekkers, thanks for trekking on over to the Retrek Review. The Retrek Review for you. It's the only podcast you'll need. It's the only podcast for you if you like Retrek and Retrek reviews. Now, Daystrom and program.
See ya, guys. The Retrek Review is a Daystrom Holodeck podcast produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props. Hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur. Edited by Will Wilbur. Our intro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. Title card art created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art created by Adri Wilbur of Love by the Letters. Synopsis and written plot provided by memory-alpha.fandom.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and the Daystrom Holodeck on Instagram and on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Captain, I can't seem to turn it off.
No, don't shut it off, Captain. I love it.
Why?
He's my son. Oh, I've created it. That's kind of where I thought the episode was going. It was like, now I use the brain of my child before he died. Don't you touch the computer. Because that's a running theme in Star Trek too. Is like, oh, my kid is in like the holodeck, like in the ether.
Please don't.
Or like, yeah, my son is lost in space between the transporter.
Or
so I just assumed.
Maybe it's just like Strange New Worlds, and his son is the M5 computer.